Sonja Luther is a young lady who spent a lot of her life suffering because she didn't know she was gluten sensitive. In this program, she reveals candidly the things that she suffered so that you too might understand that perhaps some of the problems you're going through at this precise moment are down to being sensitive to gluten. In fact, such is her passion for passing on the message that Sonja is making a documentary about what it's like to be 100% gluten-free, because she wants to raise awareness of celiac disease and non-gluten sensitivity, simply because the amount of people who are now becoming sensitive to gluten is rising at enormous rates. But the medical fraternity don't seem to be wise to it and are therefore mistreating so many people. Let's join Alan and Sonja now and find out what it's like to be sensitive to gluten, but even more so, what you can do about it.
Good morning, Sonja, and welcome to the Low Carb Paleo Show.
Good morning, Alan. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Excellent.
So, Sonja, we met through a common friend, Cynthia Ivey, which you interviewed in your movie, 100% Gluten-Free. Can you tell us about your background, how you came to America, and what got you started on this movie, and your personal information?
I sure can. I was born and raised in Germany, and I came to the US 10 years ago to study, and got my master's degree and PhD in Mississippi. I'm currently finishing my PhD in English at the University of Southern Mississippi. And in the last 2 years, I've been working on various film projects. And then a year ago, I found out about my gluten and that I can't eat it anymore. And I had to do so much research on my own because I didn't find out through a doctor. I found out on my own. And so I was doing all this research, and at some point I was just like, wow, this is taking much too long. I wish there was a documentary film that would give me all the important information in 90 minutes, and I could, start my path to recovery much faster than I am. So that's when I decided to make this film.
So how did you go from master's in English to becoming a filmmaker?
Well, I always wanted to do that, but for a long time it just seemed very unrealistic. And then a couple of years ago, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to try. And I met the right people and got involved in some great projects. One of them is another feature documentary film about an Icelandic sculptor who lives here in Fredericksburg. And it all went from there.
So to clarify, do you have celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitive?
I can't exactly answer that question. I know that I'm extremely sensitive to gluten. I got a food intolerance test done last year without a doctor. I just went to a lab and ordered it. And because I was already on a gluten-free diet, I couldn't have a celiac test done anymore. So I know I'm extremely sensitive to gluten. The test showed that. But I don't know if it's actually celiac disease or not.
Right. Do you have other food allergies?
I do. The list is very long. I react to a lot of the cross-reactive foods. I react to corn, I react to yeast, I react to dairy, and I also react to garlic very strongly, and beef, and there are a few other things that I react to as well. It makes life a little complicated at times.
Yeah, I do remember when we first met, I asked you a question. If you kiss a guy that has eaten garlic, does that give you a bad reaction?
Not with garlic, but with gluten it could, yes.
Okay. Can you share with us some of your personal struggles with gluten allergies?
Yeah. Okay. So my story with gluten is a very long one. It started, I believe, already as a a baby, when I was a baby, I was bloated all the time and crying, and my mother took me to a pediatrician, and he just said, well, I assume she's breathing in too much air while she's drinking the milk. And sent my mother home, and it just continued after that. I had digestive issues, a lot of them as a child, as a teenager, but I got used to those. After a time, it just seemed like a part of me, normal part of life. Then in my 20s, it got a lot of things got worse. I started having chronic fatigue and brain fogginess and concentration issues, and I pretty much fell asleep all the time. I was in grad school, I was reading my books, and I would fall asleep while reading my books. And so I went to see a doctor back then, and she said, you're depressed, take antidepressants. Yeah. And she said, I said, I don't want to do that. What else can I do? And she said, well, start working out, go see a counselor. So I did that, and the counselor tried to convince me as well to take some antidepressants, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So it got a little better because I was working out 5 times a week. But it would always come back, and then I also started having numbness in my fingers at night, and I talked to doctors about that. They said, well, maybe take some magnesium, low doses of aspirin, and yeah, that helped, but it would always come back as well. And then 3 years ago, I started losing weight without a reason. I was eating and eating. At first it was wonderful. I was eating and eating and eating and still losing weight. But then it just, I kept losing weight, and I thought, this is not normal. I went all the way down to 105 pounds, and it's still hard for me to gain weight, actually. And then the last thing that happened, and that actually got me to the point where I found out about gluten, was constant sinus infections. I would get sick all the time, and I was congested all the time, and I went to see a doctor about that a year ago. Actually, I went to see an ENT for that, and his reaction was, why are you here? This is not a big problem. You should just go to your regular doctor for this. And I said, well, I've been taking antibiotics like 4 or 5 times a year. This can't be normal. I want to figure out what the problem is. And he said, taking antibiotics 4 or 5 times a year is really not that bad. Just keep taking them. If it gets worse, then we need going to investigate further. But right now, I wouldn't worry about it. So he sent me home with some more antibiotics.
Yeah.
And that's when I lost complete faith and trust in doctors. And fortunately, I met someone back then who, during a conversation, just mentioned to me, yeah, I get congested when I eat gluten. And so I went home, started my research, and was like, wow, all of these symptoms that I've been suffering from my entire life could be related to this one thing. Right. And so I went on a gluten-free diet, and things got better, but it was like a roller coaster ride, and because I didn't know about cross-contamination at that point. Right. So I was still getting gluten. I had cut out the bread and the pasta, but I didn't know that gluten was hiding in all of these other things, and cross-contamination. What's that? So I was still going to the restaurants, just ordering off the gluten-free menu and thinking it was all fine. And then when I found out about all of these things, and I knew I had to replace my skillets and everything, that's when I was like, okay, I need something black on white. So I went to a lab, had a food intolerance test done, and yeah, the result was what I expected. I had a positive reaction to gluten.
Are you also allergic to dairy? Have you found out?
Yeah.
Because typically dairy has something to do with sinuses and
that's
problem.
I had a positive result to dairy as well.
would you say you're on a gluten-free diet or you're more like on a paleo diet?
I'm on a paleo diet right now because I realized that when I was eating grains, I was not feeling that well. And like I would still have the headaches, I would still get the heartburn. And so I've been, for a while I was on a mostly paleo diet, and right now I'm on a 100% paleo diet actually, because I still, since I've gone gluten-free, I realize much faster when my body's not doing well. And
Yes.
so now when I feel a reaction to something, I immediately do something about it and I eliminate that food item, at least for a while, to see what happens when I introduce it again. So that makes it very complicated at times, but you know, it's when you realize how well you can actually feel and then you're not feeling that well anymore, you want to get back to that 100% state.
So you went through progression from gluten-free to dairy-free to paleo.
I went immediately dairy-free, gluten-free, corn-free, and yeast-free, because all of those things were on my food intolerance test. But for example, what I didn't know was, like I knew that I was also reacting to yeast, but some things you just don't know right away. It's, for example, I didn't know that I had to worry about yeast in tamari sauce or in vinegar. I just kept eating vinegar with my salads, not thinking about the yeast cultures in it. So I was still reacting to that, and I had no idea why until a few months later I found out, and I was like, oh yeah.
So unfortunately, that takes out all the probiotics, natural probiotics you would get from sauerkraut and pickles and kimchis and all that good stuff, which you should take because you're taking so much antibiotics, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'm not taking any antibiotics anymore.
Right.
Since I went gluten-free, I have not had a sinus infection, so that's gotten a lot better. But yes, I mean, everybody's talking about taking prebiotics, probiotics to help your gut heal, and I tried those pills once and they made me very sick. Yeah.
Well, some of them do contain lactose, and some of them also come from genetically engineered source. So if you pay attention to that, maybe you can avoid, you know, the bad version of it. That's what I found out when I was doing all my research on GMOs. So that's something I can help you if you need help. You know, I can work with you or give you a couple of companies you can test, and because they're completely GMO free. So that could be an issue to watch as well. Let's go to the movie now. Your movie is called 100% Gluten Free. What can you tell us about it?
I have 3 goals for this film. And that is, first of all, raise awareness, because there are still so many people out there that don't know that they have either celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. They're suffering. And they go to doctors and they get the same answer I got, which is just go home, you know, you're imagining everything, you're fine. And which is in some ways understandable when you think about a doctor just having 10 minutes time to really talk to you. They cannot really look at your whole story and think about all of your symptoms in connection with each other. And so I think that if we have a film that actually helps people see the connection between all of the symptoms, and that their headaches and their digestive system, digestive issues, and their numbness in the fingers, and all of these other symptoms could all be actually related, then they can go to the doctor and say, hey, why not have a test done and see if I actually have a gluten sensitivity and celiac disease. And so I'm hoping that by providing this information, people will find out much faster and not, you know, have to wait as long as I had to wait, which was 30 years, 30 Yeah, almost 32 years. Yeah.
Too bad you didn't come across my book 3 years ago when it came out, right? So your first goal is education, which is very important because people need to take matters into their own hands if the medical establishment is not helping.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's becoming more and more important, even though doctors are warning their patients don't go online and search for a diagnosis there. I think that a lot of, especially people with gluten sensitivity and celiac disease, a lot of those people, if they hadn't gone online, they would still be suffering today because they still wouldn't know about it. So I think raising awareness is extremely important in this case. And so the second goal is to provide emotional and educational support for people who just found out that they have celiac disease or gluten sensitivity, because there's so much information out there and it takes so much time to read through all of it. So I want to show interviewees who just found out and how they're adjusting their lives. I want to show people who found out 10 years ago and show where they're at today and how much their life has improved since they found out and since they've taken gluten out of their diet. So that's the second part. And then the third part of it is about, what do you do if going gluten-free is not enough? Right. And like this, there are many people that go gluten-free and they're still suffering. So what do you do then? And like in my case, I have to be totally grain-free right now. I am, and I had to cut out dairy, and I had to cut out the yeast and all of these other things and I'm still not 100%. So I think that's really something that is not being discussed enough, or that where people are really lost and don't know what to do about. What do you do if you already take out gluten and your life is so difficult and you're not getting better? And I also think that a lot of people that find out they have to live a gluten-free diet get obsessed with eating the gluten-free equivalent of the food they ate before, and so they're eating all this processed gluten-free food. I think what all of these diets that have come out in the past years that have become more popular, no matter if it's the gluten-free, the paleo, or the forks over knives kind of avoid animal protein diets. What all of these diets have in common is that they all stay away from processed food, and I think that's where we need to go. That's our future.
Absolutely, yeah. So what would be can you describe your typical daily diet, for example?
Most of the time, it's a smoothie in the morning with almond butter or so in it to make it a little more substantial, and then the rest of the day I just eat lots of veggies and meat.
Right.
And so that's pretty much it's different veggies, different meat every day, but and sometimes fish, and that's pretty much it. When I go to the store now, I stay on the outskirts kind of the store. I go to the fresh produce section and to the meat section, and that's pretty much it. And
the fish, do you eat fish too?
I do sometimes, not as much as I eat, for example, lamb, because I noticed that with fish, if I eat too much, I don't feel too well, and the same with some other meats. And so for me, one thing that my body has been handling really well is, for example, lamb.
Also, what's important is the source, the quality of your meat and fish. Yeah. So, avoid all the commercial, industrial kind of growing, for animals, and even farm fish. try to go more towards grass-fed, pasture-raised, wild-caught fish, and all this because all of these are fed genetically engineered grains, which of course will come through when you eat it.
Yes, I mean when I go when I eat fish, I buy the wild caught, and with the meat, I think yes, especially with the beef, it's important to get the grass fed. Since I don't eat beef, I don't. That's not an issue for me, but and I haven't seen too much grass fed lamb yet.
I found the Central Market here in Austin is actually just starting offering grass-fed lamb ground.
Oh, really? I need
Yeah,
to
like
check that
kind of
out.
like
So I've been looking for it.
kind of like a hamburger form. So I typically buy one of each grass-fed beef, and usually eat it just ground. I don't go with the fancy cuts. Ground bison because that's naturally grass-fed, and ground lamb now. So that's another good source you can look for.
The minced lamb makes lovely kebab meat if you like doing homemade kebabs.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little
so going
lemon
back
on top.
Yeah.
I'm hungry now.
Little spices. So going back to the movie, can you tell us who you interviewed so far?
We've shot 13 interviews so far, and among our interviews are, for example, Dr. Alessio Fasano and Dr. Cynthia Rudert, and then lots of individuals who've been suffering from celiac disease and gluten sensitivity, and a few who else? Una Williams, Carol Fenster. So yeah, 13 people so far, and we're still planning to interview a lot more.
Good. How far along are you in your production schedule?
I would say third way done, and so it's still going to take a while. With documentary films, especially feature documentary films, it's a long process. So we don't expect to be done before December 2015 with the whole film. But because it takes so long, and I don't want to wait and don't want to have people have to wait until then to get all of the information, I will be posting excerpts from interviews on our website, 100percentglutenfree.com. So a lot of the film will actually be happening on the website, and it's good. So it's already you can already find it, 100percentglutenfree.com. So far, I've only posted one video, but there will be a lot more in the future.
You said you've noticed a lot of changes in your health and everything else as you've gone through gluten and onto paleo. What's been the biggest difference that you've noticed in terms of what's made the biggest difference to your life?
It's because my body was so weak for so many years. It really had an effect on my mind, my emotions, everything. So I feel like a different person since I went gluten-free. I feel much more stable. I feel much happier. The problems obstacles in my life seem much smaller now, much more manageable. While before, I like if there was a sudden problem in my life, it would almost crush me and I would be overwhelmed by it, which really bothered me as a person because I really don't like to be that way. I was always a fighter my whole life, and then the past few years I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and all these problems seemed bigger and bigger and bigger. Since I went gluten-free, all of these issues suddenly don't look like issues anymore, and so that has an enormous effect on my life, the way I see the world, the way I can deal with the world. And I think that there are a lot more people out there that don't know that their diet can have such an effect on their mental health. They just they take the pills and they think they're the problem, that they're just weak or not strong enough for this world. And actually it can be their diet, and I don't think that it's just gluten, but for some people it might be something else. But that a lot of their mental health has to do with their diet. And the headaches, really. I mean, I had headaches every single day. I didn't even know what it felt like to not have a headache anymore. So now that's why I notice it again. Like, oh, today I have a headache. What's wrong?
What do I eat?
Because before, exactly, yes, that's my first thought now. And so that really made a big difference. The digestive issues that they got better, but they're still there sometimes, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But that's not a big issue when your mind is working.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you'd tried to take probiotics to help restore your digestion, and you had quite a reaction to them. Have you tried taking digestive enzymes, which work obviously further down the digestive tract?
I have not. That's my next step. I tried this past year. I mean, I've only been 100% gluten-free since September 2013.
Okay.
So it's been a process, and and recently I've realized that just changing my diet is not enough. So and just doing everything without a doctor is not enough. So I've been searching for doctors that I feel I can trust, and I think I might have found one. So my next step now is to talk to a doctor and to figure out which enzymes I might need to take, and if there are possibly prebiotics or probiotics that my body could handle to really help my body heal faster, because it's just not healing as fast as I think it could.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure after years of your digestive system being abused, it's probably quite inflamed. So you need to consider that option, to find a way to reduce the inflammation as well.
Yes. My digestive system has been suffering since I was a baby, and it was even worse because as a baby I also had salmonella poisoning at some point, which made everything even worse.
Do you have like Crohn's disease or IBS to go along with everything else, or nothing diagnosed yet?
I think I need to see a doctor, and that's what everybody else would tell me, go see a doctor. But the reason why I haven't is because I just haven't found the right one, and then also one that I can afford. And that's, I think, something why a lot of people are still suffering, because they, first of all, cannot find a doctor they can trust, and then the ones that would be really good are the ones that don't cover the health insurance, are not covered by health insurance. And so, what do you do? So a lot of it happens through individual research.
Some people don't even have health insurance, so the access to like good naturopaths, which typically do not take insurance, those can set you back quite a lot money wise.
Yeah. I mean, it's how can someone with a low income afford a doctor that takes $800 for 90 minutes?
Yeah. How much?
Yeah, for consultations.
Well, I have a couple of good naturopaths I can recommend, and they would charge I believe the first consultation is $150.
That sounds much more reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, if I used to work at People's Pharmacy, so I know a couple of very good naturopaths that you may want to talk to. I'll send you that information too.
Do you know a consultation in France with no insurance, no insurance, paying part of it or anything like that. You just pay up. Is €25.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is probably less than $35.
Yeah, I'm from Germany. If I was in Germany right now and I had health insurance, I would have seen a doctor much sooner.
And Spain's even cheaper.
Yeah. But it's over the years. I just and I think a lot of people have been going through the same thing or are still going through the same situation where, I lost my trust in the doctors, because over the years, every time I would go and see a doctor and say, there's something wrong, please test me. Like, even I actually saw a holistic doctor in Germany in my early 20s, and I got my stool got tested, and my blood got tested, and they didn't figure out anything back then either.
No?
It's like, nope. The only thing that he said back then is, well, probably it's dairy. So.
But I think holistic doctors have now got a lot more understanding about food sensitivities, particularly gluten.
That's one thing that people are not aware, is that Western medicine, traditional doctors have no training whatsoever in nutrition.
Yeah, and also what I often experience is that they really just look at your one symptom and then they try to give you something for that symptom, but they don't try to look for the cause.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, just like you say, it's symptomatic. It's not the whole body. They don't look at the whole picture. Instead of that, so they focus on their one small point, and they think that by fixing that one point, it's going to fix the whole thing. And it's usually, that's why it's called holistic medicine. Is they look at the whole picture, the whole body, and
they don't just treat symptoms, thankfully.
Yeah, and also see the connections between them. I mean, I would have never. I thought I was crazy when I believed years ago. Wow, there must be a connection between all of these symptoms. But I thought I was crazy thinking that there could be a connection between the numbness in my fingers, my headaches, and my diarrhea and constipation. And then my acne. That's one thing I haven't actually mentioned yet. Is I never had problems with acne, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, I suddenly started having acne, and really, really bad acne. And that's gotten a lot better since I went gluten-free too.
Your skin is really good now, so it's obviously doing you good.
Yeah, thank you. I realized, for example, that the yeast was still bothering it too, and once I took out the yeast, it got even better. So I'm happy, because for several years I was taking an antibiotic cream, and that's the only thing that was helping it, because I was getting scars from it.
Yeah.
At that point, and I knew something was bothering my body, but I would have never guessed that it was gluten, because I was the person, as a German, you eat bread and cheese, a lot of bread and cheese, and that's the one thing I loved my whole life. If I could have chosen 2 things to eat for the rest of my life, it would have been bread and cheese. And it didn't. I never realized that it was making me sick. Yeah. I never had immediate reactions after it. I had immediate reactions after eating garlic, but I never had immediate reactions after eating gluten. And so I never would have thought that it was the bread that was making me sick ever.
No. I love bread and cheese as well, but I can't eat the bread.
I'm French. No. I love bread and cheese too.
Yeah.
So hopefully when your movie comes out, then it'll at least open eyes to a lot of people, and they won't be wasting their money going from doctor to doctor thinking that it's all in the head.
Yes, and that's why I want to get the information out there even before the movie is released. So a lot of information will be on the website. I also, since we're all European, I might mention that as well, that I do plan to film in Europe as well once I'm done in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be even the website. I'm working on changing the website to a more interactive website where people from all around the world can actually also share their voice. Because the goal really for me is to show that this is not an American problem, this is an international, worldwide problem.
It is, yeah.
And so I want to, my plan is to give people the chance to submit their own 1 to 2 minute videos where they can talk about a very specific experience they've had with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity that they want to share with the world. And because I have had people contact me that said, I really would like to be in your film, but I live all the way over here, so is there a way for me to contribute? And I want to make that possible. So I'm working on with a web developer on changing the website so that we can add more personal videos.
Considering the brain fog and all the health issues, it's amazing that you managed to get a PhD with, especially while you were falling asleep reading your books, right?
Yes, I'm. Thank you. I'm amazed by that too. When I was working on my PhD. It took a little longer than I had planned because of these issues, but now it all makes sense. While I was falling asleep and I couldn't focus on the works and all the theory that I had to read that was just so hard to get through, I just thought, maybe I'm just not smart enough to do this. Maybe I just need, maybe the PhD is not for me. Maybe I'm just, I just need to give up. But I struggled through it. I just kept on working. And now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, now everything makes so much more sense. And it wasn't me that I wasn't good enough. It was just that my body was suffering the entire time. And so yeah, I can't believe how I did it.
Going back a bit to again, you're quite a relative newcomer to paleo and gluten free. So, I mean, you started 9 months ago?
Yeah, 10 months ago.
10 months. So I mean, it's all still quite fresh for you. Although you've had, I should think, quite a steep learning curve, so you probably progressed a lot faster than a lot of people, but there again you had more issues to deal with. If you could go back 10 months, is there one thing that you tell yourself to do differently?
I would definitely get the celiac disease test done, first of all, just to make sure, because now it's much more complicated to find out. And other than that, I probably would have tried to find a doctor who can help me figure out which enzymes and probiotics to take so that I could speed up this process. I thought I could do everything on my own, but it is really hard. The diet is a big part of it, but I think that the body probably needs some other supplements as well to really heal. Yeah. So, I think that's what I would have done. Back then I thought I could just do it on my own, everything on my own.
So sort of a helping hand would have been an ideal way of getting through things a lot more easily.
Yes, and that's one reason why I'm making this film.
That's good. That's something that people need to be encouraged to. Going back to doctors a second, I've just looked on the lowcarbmag.com website. We've got a 500 or 600 a list of 500 or 600 medical professionals listed on there from all around the world, but I say most of them are in the States. And there are 10 or a dozen, I think, in Texas. So 1 or 2, I'm sure, in Houston and around where you are. So do have a look at that. It's there. Just search for doctors, and it'll bring you up to the list, I'm sure.
Yes, and I just found someone a month ago, a doctor a month ago, that that follows the paleo diet, and I met her and heard what she said to another celiac disease patient, and hearing her advice, I agreed with everything she was saying. So I've decided that I will give that a chance and go and see her. But it was important for me to have someone who is really up to date on the newest research in terms of nutrition, and that supports the holistic and more the paleo approach, because I really think that for a lot of people just going gluten-free is not enough. And I know that for myself that's a fact.
Yeah.
And so that's why for me it's important that the doctor agrees with me. I don't want to have to have an argument with my doctor, because I know I won't change that, even if the doctor says, yeah, you can eat grains, you just leave out the gluten, but you can eat all the other grains. I mean, that's not going to help me if I have a doctor that do that, because I know from experience that that's not going to help me.
So maybe one lesson from that is that if you don't know where to look, maybe one way to find out is to kind of connect with networks of people with food allergies, and then ask them for suggestions for doctors, right?
Yeah, good point.
Yes, and I had done that, and there were some doctors that, for example, my interviewees were seeing, but I'm a grad student, just about to finish my PhD. I'm on a grad student budget. I just couldn't afford those doctors. So,
Right.
But the one that I just found recently is a doctor that actually takes health insurance, and so that's why that changes the whole picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, unlike Europe, where they have social medicine, in this country, medicine is very expensive.
The price I mentioned, €25, is the off the street price. If you've got no insurance, no nothing, that's what you pay.
That's amazing.
Right. And if you need to see a specialist, it's between 80 and €120 per consultation.
Right, but compared to America, where just the first visit would be hundreds of dollars, and the testing would add another, like I mentioned to you the other day, I had some tests done recently, and they billed my insurance $1,500 for tests.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
A full panel here is about €80.
Wow.
Nice.
No, you're looking at more than $1,000 in America just for the test. That's not even the visit, the doctor's visit.
Okay, so it's a great place to live, but not a great place to be sick.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm trying to stay healthy.
Well, this is true. Mind you, you've got the incentive to stay healthy. I've actually got an incentive to be sick. 35 years of good health, and I've not taken advantage of one single doctor's call.
Just go for fun then. Just go to say hi and pay your 25 or 35 euros, right?
Yes, I'll ask him the question, why am I so healthy?
Yeah. He'll probably look at you like, what is he talking about?
Okay, you're fine physically, but you're mad.
Yeah, that's it. That, I guess this is an interesting thing to think about, is it seems that for most people, their natural state of being is being sick. And for people like us, like you and I, for example, Mark, we haven't seen doctors for years and years and years. Our normal state of being is to be healthy. And so for either doctors or people who are constantly sick or always have something wrong with them. They don't understand how we can manage, how when I was working at People's Pharmacy, I worked with people less than half of my age that were constantly going to the doctors, and they would constantly wonder why are you, you're this old guy, how come you're never sick?
Yeah, I think we have a slight advantage though, in as much as you've always been interested in food and you've always liked to eat good food.
Right.
I've been interested in natural medicine for decades, and I've tried to treat my body using the knowledge that I know, so that's kept me relatively healthy. The vast majority of people don't have that knowledge, and that's why they eat badly. They even from birth, people are poisoning their children because they don't know any different. They're told by the people they trust that yes, that's fine, you can eat that, you can feed that to your child, you can eat that at home, you can feed that to your husband, your wife, or whoever. It's only when their level of sickness gets to the point where they say, well, I've got to do something about this, as Sonja got to, that they start looking for answers.
But the thing is, the information is out there if you care to look for it. One thing that I've learned 20 years ago when I was studying microbiotics, my teacher told us, question everything. Question everything, even question what I'm saying, him as a teacher. So constantly question and constantly keep your mind open to either new developments or to, and that's what, curiosity is what I guess keeps us healthy. And the same thing with you, Sonja, you kept on wondering and questioning your doctors, and eventually you came to finding your own solution. But that's basically what I'm saying, is that we have a society that tends to brainwash us into believing that doctors have all the answers, and then all the food we are given is good and healthy for us, and it's not true, and we need to question that.
And yes, and I think that we need to start thinking about every person differently, like about everybody's diet differently. Like, for example, I had tried other diets before I went gluten-free. I was almost a vegan for over a year. The only animal product I was still eating was cheese, and at that time I was seeing if that would help me, because I had read the China study and believed that the animal-based protein might be bad for me. So I tried that, and it didn't help for me. But it helped my father. My father got a lot better when he became a pescatarian. His health improved a lot. Mine didn't. And when I found out about the gluten and about my other food intolerances, and I left out those items that actually made me sick, and I started eating meat again, I felt better. And I was never a big meat eater. I never really loved meat. But somehow, when I started eating meat again after being close to what you call a vegan, I realized that certain meats didn't make me feel good, like beef. But then there were other meats that my body liked, that made me feel good. And so I think the most important thing for people to realize is, don't just read books about certain diets and believe everything you read. Start listening to your own body. What is your body telling you? What your body needs? Like, how does the food you're eating actually make you feel? Does it make you tired? Does it make you happy? Does it make you depressed? Feel depressed? Or does it give you stomach pain? Like, I ate cherries the other day and I got my stomach was hurting so much afterwards. I'm not going to eat cherries again. It's just not worth it. But that's, everybody else might be able to eat cherries, but my body just right now in the state it's in does not like cherries. I'm hoping that maybe once my body really heals again, maybe it will like them again, but right now it does not. So why give my body poison that it doesn't want?
Yeah, you're right. Most people are not paying attention enough or not aware enough of the effect of foods on their body, and they don't connect the two. So one tool I use with my clients, I always ask them to keep a food diary, and to where they eat what they write down what they eat, and then 2 or 3 hours later they write down, okay, how did this affect me, or what were the consequences? Did I feel better? Do I feel bad? Do I have digestive problems? Do I have brain fog? And so on and so forth. And eventually, by using the diary, they will eventually connect the dots and realize which foods are good for them, which one is not so good for them, and they can self-medicate through nutrition without, taking drugs and medications. I mean, that's the way I work.
Yeah, that works. That's a quite good piece of advice for people to take up on, and just to find out and track what you are sensitive to.
Yeah.
A quick question there, Sonja. I mean, you did mention earlier that you do exactly really what Alan said there. You listen to your body, and if you eat something, you jump on it pretty quickly if you get a problem with it. Have you found that you are becoming more sensitive the further to things like gluten, the further you get into being gluten-free?
As far as I can tell, I have not been glutened in a while, so I'm not sure now. But the months right after I went gluten-free, I was extremely sensitive. I just, there's this example of, I had this jar of chocolate chip cookies, not cookies, chocolate chips, and of course I threw them out after I went gluten-free, but I just didn't clean the jar well enough. So I had raw cocoa nibs in it afterwards, and I put those in the smoothie, and 30 minutes later I had a vertigo going. Whoa. And then I was in the bathroom, and then the next day I had headaches, and they lasted for a week.
Juice.
Yeah. So one reaction that I have when I get glutened is I get extremely dizzy. And I had that happening another time when I had cross-contaminated nuts. That was the only thing that was new in my diet, and I ate them, and I was at work, and suddenly I got so dizzy, and I had cramps the whole day, and I went home, and it got so bad that I couldn't even sit up anymore. And the vertigo went away after a day, but the headaches stayed with me for over a week, and so that was my reaction after going gluten-free whenever I got cross-contaminated food. And so I got very scared about that, and I stopped eating out because I was just too afraid of what it would do to me, because I mean, the symptoms stay with you for too long. Yeah.
Right, because even some restaurants claim to be gluten-free, they really have no clue. They're not 100% gluten-free. They are just trying to cater to the new gluten-free fad and pretend they are gluten-free, although they are not certified gluten-free there's a couple organizations that can certify them, but they think that by just offering something gluten-free, they don't seem to take into account cross-contamination and the results on highly sensitive people like you.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. They don't appreciate how sensitive some people are, don't they?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that is going to change. There are, especially here in Austin, it's a great place to live for people with food intolerances, because we have more and more restaurants that are trying to be as accommodating as possible. And I just had a really great experience lately. But for me, with someone with so many food intolerances, I experience that when I go out to eat, it's really such more trouble than I can enjoy, because more than the gluten, for me the garlic is an issue. Go to a restaurant and try to order a meal that does not include garlic. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right, so it makes you become paranoid about going out and eating out, because you don't know where to go anymore. What was that good experience? Can you name the restaurant?
Yes, it was the Odd Duck, and what was so great about it was the chef actually came to the table, and he had already a gluten-free menu and a dairy-free menu. But because I'm gluten-free, dairy-free, and have to avoid a few other things, and also the garlic, he really looked through his entire menu and put together a dish just for me that I could eat.
Oh, that was sweet.
Right.
Yes, and it was very delicious, and was even, besides that he did that, what was so wonderful about it was his attitude. At no point did I feel like I was a burden or that I wasn't welcome at the restaurant. From the beginning, already the waiter was extremely nice about it and said, "We'll figure this out. We'll find something." He called the chef, and the chef was just like, I never felt that way before at a regular restaurant, where I could tell him all of these things that made his life so much more complicated, his job so much more complicated, and he just was like, "All right, let's figure this out. Let's do this." And just taking his time and making me feel welcome, that was really great experience.
Good. Actually, it makes me want to talk to him. That particular restaurant, going way beyond what a normal restaurant would do to accommodate their customers with food allergies. So, yeah.
Yes, and I read that article, and that's why I decided to try it. And it was just like the article said. It was an incredible experience.
Okay, so we already answered when the movie might come out. How can we find more information about your movie and what you're doing?
You can find more information about the film on our website, 100percentglutenfree.com, and you can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter at 100glutenfree.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Sonja, for being on the Low Carb Paleo Show.
It's been wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much talking to you too.
Excellent.
And like we say in Texas, à votre santé, y'all.
Thanks again, Sonja.
Thank you.
We'll speak with you again soon, hopefully.